Welcome everyone, thanks for coming along to the talk. I'm AilIs Brosnan and my talk today is called New to Vegan. So I'm just curious in terms of the audience here, how many people are vegetarian? How many are vegan? And how many are curious about becoming vegetarian or vegan? So the rest of you were dragged along, is that it? Okay, perfect. So the talk today is going to talk a little bit about the health benefits of a vegan diet, why we should be vegan from a health perspective. We're going to talk about some of the common questions. I'm sure you've heard them all, especially those of you who are vegan. And then we're going to talk a little bit about transitioning to a vegan diet and what are some of the steps that are going to help you to do that. So I've been vegan for around 20 years. So this was long before the where do you get your protein question. This was what do you eat question that I used to get all the time. People just couldn't fathom food that didn't contain meat, vegetables and potatoes. So things have changed an awful lot, and this case reflects kind of my vegan journey really. When I went vegan I was living in California at the time, and yeah. Is that okay? And can you all hear me at the back? Yeah, perfect. So when I went vegan, I was living in California, as I said, and it was just so easy there. There were health food stores the size of Tesco's. It was just fantastic. But then I moved back to Ireland about 18 years ago, and definitely wasn't the same situation. So every time I used to go back to California, we used to go back once a year to visit family, I'd bring this suitcase, and it would be packed full of Brags and Engevita and cereals and energy bars and all kinds of fun stuff. But over the years, we noticed that the size of the suitcase was getting smaller and smaller. And now when we visit, we really don't have to bring anything at all. So the things have changed massively in Ireland over the last 20 years. And you can see this if you look at the Google Trends worldwide in terms of vegetarian and veganism over the years. You can see around 2010, there was the blue line is the vegan line. And you can see around 2010, it actually surpassed vegetarianism in terms of Google Trends, and now it's way, way above it. Massive increases over the last few years. And you can see it's not a trend like the paleo one, which is kind of easing off again. It's on the up and up, and all the forecasts are indicating this is going to keep continuing. And the same trends have been identified in Ireland very much again, that there's a lot more interest now directly in veganism than vegetarianism. And before I used to find that people kind of transition from vegetarian to vegan, but now I'm meeting so many people who are going directly to becoming vegan as well. So the trends are kind of changing. And it's also the 15 to 34-year-olds where the biggest increase in those going vegan is coming from as well. So it's really, really interesting. And then, you know, worldwide, you see all these, the headlines, you know, veganism skyrockets by 600%, 90% increase in vegan searches last year, and the number of vegans in Britain rising by 300% in 10 years. So massive growth everywhere. And there's a number of reasons for the growth, really, and I think the biggest thing really is an awareness. There's a massive increase in awareness around, I suppose, the whole animal welfare issues, around environmental issues, and around our health as well. And you might have seen many of these books or heard of things like the China study. And it's also, I think, the documentaries are what I'm finding most people I chat to in terms of the reasons they've turned vegan. It's often because they've seen Cowspiracy or What the Health or any of these documentaries. For those of you who said you were turned vegan, that are vegan, was it a documentary for anyone? That quite a few that kind of made that shift. That made that shift and created that awareness. So that tends to be happening a lot more now as well. So I just want to distinguish between a vegan diet and a plant-based diet because they're often used interchangeably. So just to clarify that a vegan diet is basically omitting all these foods on the left-hand side there, the meat, fish, eggs, and so on. Whereas a plant-based diet will omit these, but it would be really focused on including lots of legumes and grains and whole foods, fruits and vegetables in your diet as well. Okay? So to be a healthy vegan, you know, you could be a vegan and just live off it says, I stay healthy by following a strict vegan diet, nothing but coffee and cigarettes. So technically you could be vegan, but what we're trying to do is be a healthy vegan. And by that we need to be including more of those plant-based foods. So as you can see, what people think we eat and what we actually eat is actually a whole rainbow. I mean, you've seen all the food stands out here. I'm sure many of you have sampled them already. Just an abundance and an array of amazing, amazing foods. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the health benefits, how a vegan diet can help. And really, I know Conor is talking later on this evening around the health benefits. I'm going to move through these quite quickly, but I just want to give you a sense, and I'm supposed to reassure you, because I do get a lot of people coming to me who are very interested and really want to be vegan, but have some concerns around the health side of it. So just to, I suppose, show you how beneficial a vegan diet can be for your health. So just to give you a little context as well, you know, in Ireland our life expectancy is increasing, which is fantastic. We're living about 10 years longer than we were before. But the problem is that we're living with chronic morbidity. So we're living longer, but you know, about 10, 11 of those years are living with illness or disease. And the big ones in Ireland are heart disease and cancer. So it's because of that we need to be really important and recognize the importance of nutrition in our diet. And this chart kind of summarizes, can you see these okay at the back? Yeah. This chart kind of summarizes the research. These are looking at a number of studies across a range of countries, and they looked at the rates of heart disease and cancer, and they looked at the rate of plant-based food consumption. And you can see where the heart disease and cancer rates are highest, the orange columns, the intake of plant-based diet is the highest. So basically, there's a massive correlation between the amount of plant-based foods you eat and lowering your rate of heart disease and cancer. And you can see that across all the countries. So it's really, really striking, I think, on that chart. But just to mention, you know, in terms of a few of these big killer diseases, heart disease, and again, there's a lot of stats here, I won't go into them, but just to summarize, if you have a vegan diet, you're much less likely to have heart disease, you're much less likely to be hospitalized if you do, you're much less likely to die if you do, and not only that, studies have shown that not only can a plant-based diet help with heart disease, but it can actually regress the heart disease. Dean Ornish is a guy in California, and I was fortunate enough to work with him a number of years ago, and he's shown that exercise, mindset, and a plant-based diet can actually reduce heart disease in regressed heart disease in 82% of his patients. And that's quite phenomenal. So it's not just stopping it, but it's actually reversing it, which is really amazing. And he's found similar findings with pancreatic cancer as well. So really powerful stuff. And again, just visually, you know, this is the average risk of a male in the US, their risk from heart disease. If they're an omnivore, their risk is 50%. If they're vegetarian, it's 15%. And if they're vegan, it's 4%. So, you know, across the board, we're much better when it comes to heart disease. And again, I just want to illustrate that the impact that the immediacy, I guess, of changes in your diet and how quickly some of these benefits can occur. And I remember being blown away by this study. This is a study that tracked heart disease in Norway over the years. And you can see it was on the increase all the way up to the 1940s, when then World War II happened. The livestock were taken away by the Germans for their armies, so Norwegians were living mostly a plant-based diet. And what happened to their heart disease rates? You can see it on the chart there. They dropped massively, and so quickly, just so immediately. And then after the war, livestock came back. They started eating animal protein again, and heart disease rates went up again. So on a population basis, I think this speaks volumes. And there's no intervention, public health intervention we've done that has had this kind of impact on lowering heart disease rates than the plant-based diet did. Is that surprising to you? Yeah, just, you know, how you can really see the massive impact it had on a population-based level. It really is powerful. So it's a simple, you know, nutrition plays a massive role when it comes to our heart health. You know, as it says there, you can get a quadruple bypass or you can eat your veggies. This really is, you know, the message there. And similar results found, again, with cancer and plant-based diets. Again, I'm not going to go into these in detail, but basically, the more plant-based foods you ate, the lower your rates of breast cancer, cancers of the digestive tract, and blood cholesterol as well. So really plays a massive impact. And again, the immediacy here, the immediate effect of changing your diet is evident in this study here. And this study, you can see here, is around cancer tumor growth. And when animal protein was consumed, the growth started to increase. And when they switched to a plant-based diet, the cancer growth went down to 5%. And then they increased the animal protein again. So it was like an on-off switch. As soon as they gave animal protein, cancer growth grew. As soon as animal protein was replaced by plant protein, the cancer growth reduced. So really startling and really immediate results can be found through a plant-based diet. Similar results, again, with prostate cancer. And again, a lot of the cancer links is related to the the growth hormone that's found in milk, because it's really meant to accelerate growth. So if you have a cancer tumor, it's going to accelerate the growth of that as well. And that's why men with prostate cancer, they generally tend to have high levels of that growth hormone as well. And even with the meat, in addition to the growth hormones, you might remember 2 years ago, the World Health Organization came out and have told us that red meat is probably carcinogenic and that processed meat is carcinogenic. So we know now that the full Irish breakfast is going to cause you cancer. It's quite startling, and it's amazing to me how slowly the message is kind of filtering down. It's really, I think some places have taken on the message and are spreading the word, like the PCRM organization in the US. And it is as simple as that. Hot dogs cause butt cancer. It really is what we know to be fact now. The cancer research in the UK, again, they're starting to spread the message. They're making it quite clear. You eat these foods, they cause cancer. You eat red meat, it's probably going to cause cancer. But again, then you look to the Irish guidelines and you have to read into the very, 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 very fine print, and they somewhere mention that limit intake of red meat, and that's as far as they go. So a lot of the research is there. This is the difficulty. We know the research, the evidence is there, very, very strongly that a plant-based diet is beneficial for our health, but how that message filters down through national dietary guidelines and then to national organisations responsible for setting out these guidelines varies, as you can see with that cancer example. And again, similar findings with diabetes. A vegan diet is much more effective than even the American Diabetes Association dietary guidelines in reducing diabetes. So again, very much a consequence of food choices here. And obesity, again, in Ireland, we have a massive problem. They predict by 2030 we're going to be the most obese country in Europe, and 9 out of 10 of us are predicted to be overweight if we continue in the way that we're going. So again, a vegan diet plays a massive role in reducing our weight and keeping us in a normal weight. I run an online program for weight loss, and within 8 weeks of eating a vegan diet, the women on average are losing about a stone in weight. And again, that's not the primary purpose, but it is a nice side effect as well. So you can see massive changes in switching to a plant-based diet. And anybody want to live longer? They're kind of nice, yeah? There's one person, woo! So again, a vegan diet is going to help you live longer. Non-vegetarians, the rate of dying compared to vegetarians, they have a 20% more a greater risk. And it's not just living longer as well. By having a vegan diet, you're going to live obviously healthier as well. We've just heard, you're going to have less risk of heart disease, of cancer, of diabetes, of all these things. So you're going to live longer, but enjoy living those extra years. I mean, that's what it's all about. We want to live full lives. So a plant-based diet is definitely going to help facilitate that. And if you haven't seen this guy up here, Dr. Wareham, as my little 4-year-old would say, Google him. He retired at 95. He was a surgeon, and he only retired because he wanted to spend more time with his family. So, he was vegan all his adult life as well, and he's out there now. I think he's nearly 100 mowing the lawn, and you can see the videos of him on YouTube. It's really, really fun to watch. So definitely you're going to live longer. And all the studies, this is a massive Harvard study done with nearly 100,000 people. And again, the bottom line there is your meat consumption. The more your meat consumption goes up, the more your risk of dying from cancer, cardiovascular disease, and every cause, basically. So really, to summarize that, and I know I flew through quite quickly those slides, but really to summarize, to reduce your risk of cancer by nearly, about a third, they say, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, and to live longer and enjoy living longer. The message is there, go vegan from a health perspective. Most definitely. It's really indisputable, as I said, anymore. The evidence is there. It's really, really strong. The difficulty why we're not hearing it is very slow to filter down through the national organisations. Is that making sense? Yeah, all okay with that? Okay. So what's the hardest part of going vegan? Family. That's the hardest part of everything, isn't it? Lost the plot, yeah. And it can be, definitely. There can be lots of challenges, but none of them that can't be overcome. But definitely, I suppose, for me, as I said, being vegan 20 years, it's often been the questions. And as I said, initially it was like, what do you eat, when it was way back then. But now, I've kind of been from the awkward person to kind of the trendy person, because it's kind of trendy to be vegan now, so it's kind of cool. But these are some of the common questions. And for those of you who are vegetarian, you said earlier, those of you who are kind of considering a vegan diet or lifestyle, I wanted to run through some of these questions because they can be genuine concerns for people, and I do get a lot of people coming up to me, even at the last Vegfest in Cork, who really wanted to be vegan but had lots of concerns or questions, and even parents of kids who are turning vegan that might have these questions as well. So I'll run through these and answer them. And as well, I have a stand all day today and tomorrow, so if anybody has any additional questions or personal questions, come feel free to find me there. So I came across this little image a couple of years ago, and it's my response every time now when someone asks me why I'm vegan. I just say, well, why aren't you? And it really turns things around in a sense and gets conversations going and really gets them questioning themselves rather than questioning me. So that works really well if you want to try that one, borrow that one. But where you get, who's had this question, and not just once, a million times you've had this question, I'm sure. It's so funny, as soon as you kind of go vegan, it's everybody's concerned for your nutrition. You sneeze and it's your diet. I know at the beginning, my dad every time, after I went vegan initially, it was, oh, you need a red juicy steak. You need a steak. You need to. And after time, I think that changes. And I think the one thing, for whatever reason you're vegan, whether it's health or environment or the animal welfare, and probably a combination, I think, for most people. The one good thing about being a healthy vegan, I think, is because we tend to be role models. As soon as you say you're vegan, people are trying to analyze you for everything and see how often you're sick. If you're the only person in work who's never off sick, if you're the only 6-year-old who's not on medications, if you're the fit and healthy person in the group, they start to kind of question it. And I've definitely found that with my own circle of friends, that they've seen that I can be active and I can be fit and I can be healthy. This day next week, I'm doing an Ironman in Barcelona. So hopefully I'll be going strong at this point, but I live a really full life and they can see that, and a lot of my friends have changed as a result. Whereas if I was kind of sickly and poor and not taking care of myself and eating, as we saw earlier, the kind of coffee and crisp kind of vegan diet, well, I wouldn't be a good role model for it. So I think we have a kind of a responsibility in a sense, being vegan sometimes too, to kind of be the best we can be and be the healthiest we can be. But anyway, back to where you get your protein from. This is one response, but I probably wouldn't recommend you using this one. Sometimes I'm tempted, but I think what we need to understand here, and I know it is strong, what we need to understand here is that people have been conditioned. We've been conditioned for years to think that meat is necessary, that milk is necessary. My little 4-year-old came home from school telling me that milk was good for his bones, and he had a lovely, Lee Strand milk posters, and so, it's still happening. The messages just aren't getting through, and we're still being indoctrinated with the other questions. So I think it's a lack of awareness for a lot of people that they don't, realize that you can be vegan and you can be healthy. But at the same time, when we know the research, we know that processed meat causes us cancer. I think we're going to think back. It's going to be like the smoking. Do you remember when we think now that, oh my goodness, people were smoking in a restaurant beside me and people were sitting in an airplane beside me smoking. How did we ever do that? And I think it's going to be the same with processed meat and red meat. We're going to think back, how did we ever feed that to our kids? Not just from a health perspective, from other perspectives too. Once awareness grows and grows and grows, which is happening. But anyway, back to the protein. Absolutely relax with your protein if you're vegan. Once you eat a variety of foods, this is all about getting a variety of whole foods into your diet. Once you get a variety of foods, you really don't have to worry. There are 9 amino acids that we need to get from foods, and you don't have to combine proteins. That's kind of an old school way of thinking, and that has been retracted. Once you're getting the variety over the course of the day, or even a couple of days, you'll get all those amino acids. You can absolutely relax. How much we need is debatable. The World Health Organization say 10 to 15% of calories. The RDA, the recommended daily amount is about 0.8 per kilogram of body weight. For vegans, we actually need slightly more. We do need slightly more to consume slightly more, because plant-based protein isn't digested in the same way. For athletes and for younger people, it can be up to about a gram a kilogram as well. But again, there's just an abundance of sources of protein. Can you see these okay at the back? Kind of, yeah. So, the animal protein, you're looking at kind of 20 to 30 grams of protein per 100 grams. But you can see spirulina has 58 grams of protein, chlorella, your hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, lentils, peanut butters, all your nuts, your beans, your tempeh, your quinoa, and all your vegetables. People are often surprised to see the vegetables down there. They all have protein as well, small amounts, but it all helps contribute to your daily amount as well. Are you surprised, some of you, to see that, for the sources of protein? Yeah, people often are. So you can relax, as I said, around the protein. Once you're getting a variety of these foods, even avocados have some protein in them. There's lots of advantage of having your protein from plant-based foods as well. From a health perspective, that you're getting fiber that you don't get in animal protein, you're getting a ton of vitamins and minerals, you're getting phytochemicals, antioxidants, plant sterols, you're getting no cholesterol, no hormones and all that nasty stuff that can go into the poor animals, and generally it's a low source of fat, particularly saturated fat, except again maybe for the poor avocados who have a little bit of saturated fat, but we'll forgive them for that. You're fat, but you're good fat. And again, if there was an issue with protein and building muscle for vegans, these are all vegan, athletes right here. So absolutely no problem developing muscle. If any of you, Patrick is talking later, and I challenge any of you to take him on an arm wrestle. I did last year. I think I won, but I'm not sure. But yeah, absolutely, you can build muscle, no problem on a vegan diet. And again, even in terms of endurance events, you've all these athletes here. Scott Jurek, vegan athlete running the Appalachian Trail. We had Fiona Oakes, who was here last year. Carl Lewis, not many people are aware, is vegan. Won all his Olympic medals. Brendan Brazier is a vegan triathlete, a professional athlete. And as I said myself, I'm doing an Ironman. It's a 3.8k swim next Saturday. It's a 180k bike ride followed by a marathon. So absolutely, we can do all these things on a vegan diet. And actually, I find myself personally that I recover from sessions a lot quicker. Most of my colleagues I'm doing this with at the moment, that they're all exhausted from all the training. I'm full of beans, full of energy, can't wait to get going. So I think we recover quickly and have no problem doing it at all. So that's the protein bit. Does that make sense? Is that all? So the milk one is another one. The milk one is just one I just find it really strange to get my head around. And again, it's because we're so conditioned and marketing is so strong. But it's really, really strange. We're the only species that drinks the milk of another species. It's just really weird. Like cow's milk is for baby calves. Deer milk is for baby deers. Our breast milk is for our offspring. It's really strange that we feel for our survival we need the milk of another species. It just really is strange. And not only that, the milk from a cow, a cow's milk, as we call it, and we always make sure we call it cow's milk, so we know it's for cows. Cow's milk is made to raise a 60-pound calf to be a 600-pound cow in 8 months. So it's full of growth hormone, and as we mentioned earlier, that's going to increase rates of cancer. It accelerates aging, and lots of other negative things. So it's just really strange, and I think this picture captures that strangeness. And that's what we're doing, This is milk for their calves. And there's a whole issue there of removing the calves from their mothers, and as any mother in here will see, it's there's just so much not right with this image, isn't there? And that's what we're doing. It really is a strange thing. And as well, the whole myth that calcium is good for our bones, it actually, when you consume lots of animal protein, it increases the pH of your blood. So you tend to buffer calcium to neutralize the pH, and you draw the calcium from your bones to buffer it. So it actually leads to osteoporosis and osteopenia. And again, all the research will back this up. This is a massive study that was done. I looked at 87 surveys over 33 countries, and hip fractures are an indicator of osteopenia or osteoporosis, and basically the more animal protein you consume, the higher the risk of hip fractures in those countries. So again, it's opposite to what we're being indoctrinated with through the dairy industry and so on, but it's just all a little strange. And again, plenty of plant-based sources of calcium, absolutely plenty. Kale being a great one. You can see some of the other, your green leafies, your molasses, your legumes. They're all great sources, your tofu of calcium. The only thing just to be careful of, calcium rates vary. The absorption rates vary. So you need to watch with your calcium. Kale is a better source of calcium than spinach would be. So kale is a better one if calcium's an issue for you. And again, if you are osteopenic or have osteoporosis, you need to make sure you're getting the weight-bearing exercise in there where you're on your feet, strengthening your bones every day. B12, my summary on this really would be that you should supplement. It's you either make sure that you're eating really well and you're getting fortified foods 2 to 3 times a day. And again, that could be through soy milk, so cereals or some breakfast cereals. If you're not careful and you're not doing that 2 to 3 times a day, we really would be recommending a supplement. It's not something you want to mess with. Lack of B12 will affect nervous system, particularly for pregnant mums or newborns. Both my kids are vegan from birth, and I would make sure, that they're not lacking in B12. Symptoms of B12 deficiency can occur very quickly in newborns, and you'll hear a lot of those scary stories, unfortunately, in the media and so on. So just be careful around your B12. And also just back to the calcium, for teenage girls, that's when your calcium is laid down. So you need to make sure you're building up your calcium stores if there's any teenage girls here, you have them at home, because you reach a peak, and then it's about just maintaining that level of calcium through life as best you can. But you need to be careful that you're building that, if they're girls here who are vegan, just they make sure they're getting plenty calcium, so they have a high level to start with, and then they try and maintain that as they go. Iron, again with vegans, we tend to consume lots of iron in our diet, but you need to watch out for absorption. So make sure vitamin C will increase absorption massively, and just watch out for the inhibitors, tannins. If you're having a cup of tea, if you like your tea, just try to leave an hour between the tea and the meal, because tannins can really affect absorption. Even up to 50 to 90% of the iron can be affected, the absorption of it. And again, tons of iron sources, your spinach, your spirulina, quinoa, all kinds of sources of iron, plenty sources of iron. And similar for vitamin D and iodine, I'm just going to run through these real quickly. Just, again, if you're getting a multivit that has your B12, you'll be covered with your vitamin D and iodine as well. So the easiest thing really is, I don't encourage people to get too bogged down. You could be trying to calculate milligrams of calcium and this and that and the whole lot, and I don't do that personally. I think if you just look at your food plate over the day, and I think this is a good visual, half your plate or half your consumption over the course of the day, you're looking to be fruit and vegetables. And again, green leafies, I would, recommend that, if you forget everything today, eat more green leafy vegetables and you'll be doing well. I'd increase the amount of green veggies on that plate there. So that's what you're aiming for. Then you want, about a quarter to be your legumes for your protein and your fiber and so on. You want some calcium-rich foods in there, and then you want your whole grains as well, not your refined grains, your whole grains. And then your supplementation and a little bit of your exercise thrown in as well. So I have some of those. I didn't bring them down with me, but they're at my stand. If anybody wants a copy of that handout, you can come to me in the stand. So that really just kind of, I suppose, to summarize it really, and that. So is everyone doing okay? You're all still with me? Yep. All still smiling? Good. I know I'm going through this quite quickly, so just a lot to cover. So I suppose, how many of you again were thinking of kind of transitioning to a vegan diet or kind of exploring it at the moment? There's quite a few, which is great. Fantastic. You're in the right place for that anyway, so take advantage of all the information out there today. So generally I find people go through 5 steps. There's the awareness where you start to kind of realize, gosh, maybe the way I'm eating isn't the best for me or for the environment or for the animals. Then you kind of seek out information and join Facebook groups or come to events like this. Then you start experimenting, and the best way with this really is to start veganizing the current recipes you have. I find a phased approach kind of tends to work best for people. So just to look at the recipes you have, how you can veganize them, and then gradually build in new recipes over time. And then adjusting, I'll run through that quickly, and inspiring others. So, there's so many ways to veganize recipes now. We've so many ingredients, so many options, and there's egg replacers, dairy replacers for absolutely everything nowadays. So it really is quite easy to do that. Just, when you're traveling, make sure, this is the only place I can come I don't have to bring a little snack bag. It's fantastic. Everywhere else I go, I always have my snack bag, so I'm not cut out. So it just takes a little bit of prep and a little bit of planning, and quite then it's easy to do. That way, you're not left stuck in a rut or starving or trying to find something to eat. So it just makes life a little bit easier. Eating out has got so much easier. My goodness, we've vegan restaurants in Ennis and in Waterford and tons in Dublin as well. It's just amazing. Cornucopia used to be the only place for me way back when, and it was such a treat. So it's just amazing to have so many places. For those of you who are new to kind of vegan, I know at the beginning I didn't want to be making a fuss, when I was eating out, particularly with family. Many of you mentioned those, or with friends. So quite often what I do is I call in advance, and I find that works really well. most days now you can Google the restaurant online, check out what they might have, and maybe even make suggestions to the chef. Look, can you do this without this or with that? Sometimes that saves the hassle on the night. If you want to do that, it just makes it go a little smoother. If you find, I live down in Kerry, and sometimes they mightn't be so au fait with everything, and if I find they're not really paying attention or not getting me, I kind of pull out my allergy card, because I probably would have kind of a, allergic reaction if I ate something. I'm not sure how technically I'm defining allergy, but once you pull the allergy card, they listen. So just a little tip for you there. It does work every time. With family as well, it can be, if you're transitioning, there's a choice always involved. The kids, keep offering, I find, is a way. My kids mightn't eat a casserole, but if I blend it up tomorrow and give it to them as a soup, they'll eat it. So you just sometimes, if I present a salad in the shape of a smiley face, they might eat it, otherwise they won't. So, just getting creative and linking with that. With social situations and family, everybody's situation is different, so it's hard to give kind of direct advice here. But it's finding what works for you, and you'll find your feet over time. I think the more confident you get with your decision and know that it's right for you and know that it's right for all the other reasons as well, you have more conviction and more confidence in it. And I think once people see you thriving on a vegan diet as well, it gets harder for them to start giving you kind of rebuttals. But we do kind of challenge, I suppose, their way of thinking. We do challenge a lot of things for people. So it is, I suppose, a natural reaction for them to kind of be a bit defensive. But planning definitely ahead. And if you're in those kind of family situations where it's hard to kind of be rude and just keep changing the subject, or I've just eaten, or you'll find little things that work for you to get over it. So really just I did fly through that. You did really well to stay with me talking so fast, because we're just coming to the end, but it gives us time for questions anyway. So I suppose the choice is ours. It is, do we want to go down kind of the option that's really good for us and for the environment and for the animals, or do we want to choose, the other option? And once my little girl saw me putting these slides together and saw the blueberry, she goes, I'm going that way. So it is a choice, and I think the choice is more than just for us and for our health as well. And I think that this kind of statement sums it up here. It says from Jay Leno, he said, McDonald's announced it's considering a more humane way of slaughtering its animals. They fatten them up and then they kill them. It's the same thing they do to their customers, isn't it? So it makes absolutely no sense for us to be eating this way and choosing these foods that aren't helpful for us. And it absolutely makes no sense from an animal welfare perspective as well. So it's we're killing them and it's killing us. So on any level, it just makes no sense. It really doesn't. And as I said, my kids, they're vegan from birth. So for them, they just don't get it. They don't get why we'd have a little, we've a little pet dog, Lexi, at home, and then they see the pigs and the cows out in the field, and they don't get what the difference is, because there isn't. They've actually, research showing that pigs are actually more intelligent than dogs. So why are we having one as a pet and killing the other to eat? It just, again, it's like that milk thing. It just makes no sense. And thankfully, they're growing up with that concept and that consciousness. And I suppose it would be my hope that so many more of us could, wake up and become aware and realize that it doesn't make sense on any level. Either, I suppose, for the animals, for the planet, or for ourselves, it really doesn't. A vegan diet is just wonderful for our health, wonderful for the animals, obviously, and wonderful for the environment too. So, if anyone is interested, those of you who said you were thinking of transitioning and considering, moving on to a vegan diet, I'm running a Vegan Till 5 challenge in October, where you get all your recipes and all the support to try and transition into a vegan diet. So that'll be happening mid-October. And actually, if you wouldn't mind passing those around, I forgot to pass around if you pass them around, sign up, please. Oh, you did already? Oh, okay, thank you. So if you signed up to my sign-up sheet there, you'll get information that's sent out to you. Also, when you signed up to that, you get a week full of green, healthy smoothie recipes with lots of kale and spinach in them as well. And then just the other thing to mention, I've developed a new online program called New to Vegan. And again, as I said, my experience with a lot of people transitioning is that they lack a little bit of confidence or skills or knowledge to do it and do it well, so they're a healthy vegan. So I'm running an 8-week course called New to Vegan, where it's all your recipes for the 8 weeks, tons of information about vegan nutrition, about overcoming all the various different challenges you might face, and there's a Facebook group to support it, and lots of webinars and live streams and all that as well. And there's, just to promote that this weekend, it's 50% off with the code FEST50. Actually, that's wrong. It's actually FEST50 is the code if anybody's interested in that. So that's it from me. Thanks so much for bearing with my whiz through the health benefits and the questions and some of the transition tips there. If you have any particular questions, feel free to ask, and either you can chat to me now, or I can wait around afterwards. Or as I said, I'll be up at the stand for all day today and tomorrow as well. So at any point, please do come and talk to me. So thanks a million. Thanks.